There's Kathleen. Hello, all. There they are. Hey, Carol.
Hi,
Stephanie.
David. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
It's about freezing here in northern Scotland, so I'm wearing my scarf indoors.
Oh, you're in northern Scotland. Oh,
I
okay.
Yeah.
Well, just to make you feel warm, David, Saturday morning I stuck my nose out the door and there was snow on the ground. And I'm
Wow.
in Vancouver. So,
Wow.
haha.
And Jill, where's your imaginary background today?
So this is in Big Bend National Park. I am in New York City, but this is where my background is during a lovely thunderstorm sunset thing happening.
Cool. And Kathleen's in her usual posh office, perfectly immaculately organized as always.
Always.
We always wish, right? Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, we may have a small group today, but that's all good. This will be our last one before the program starts next week, so that'll be good. Miss Justine, let's see who Miss Justine is. Oh. She wins the award for best ballet move on the call.
Hmm.
Mhm. Wait to see if she comes online here. Anyway, so this is the last of these, and I was thinking about a conversation I had a couple of weeks ago with one of our participants from last year about her frustrations trying to help her client, who she'd worked with for years, try something new. And so the whole piece around how do we enroll our clients in the courage to actually work differently. And so I used her example just as a little teaching story for today. And then I want to give you a chance to practice this for yourself. All right. But anything else that's you want to check in about, or if that feels important for you today as we get started? And Jill, I listened to the entire Michelle song and I did not find this hidden significance. So I'll keep working on it.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I actually ask a quick question?
You
I'm just
can.
typing it in the chat. I just always like to, as an English professor, know my audience. Where I see it's being recorded, where will this live? Will it be public? Just so I know how to present myself, you know?
No, it'll only be recorded for the people that are registered for today and for this series. So it will not be made public outside of that.
Okay, great. I saw on the YouTube page that all the previous ones were sort of there publicly, so I just wanted to check in. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I'll double check that with Emily, but and then obviously the breakout rooms are not recorded. So yeah, great. Here we have somebody else disguised as Northwest Conference. This is great. All right. So I'm gonna so Jill or Justine or does Northwest Conference go by another name? Can we call you like something else?
Yeah, sorry, David. It's Hollow Skim. I'll change my name in a sec here.
Okay, no wonders, no worries. But those of you who are new to us, do you want to just say hello and introduce yourself to us? So that would be Hollis and Jill and Justine.
Sorry. I'm Hollow Skim. I'm in Minneapolis, where it's cold. So wherever you are, San Diego, David, I'm sure you're warmer.
No, I'm actually in northern Scotland, so I'm even higher up than you are longitude-wise. So yeah.
Oh well. Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jill Bella. I am an English professor in New York City. Just had the pleasure of meeting and discussing some things with David yesterday, and just am here to learn more.
Hi, I'm Justine. I will try to get my camera working. I am a friend of Dr. Bradley Brummel and
Okay.
talked about the program quite a bit.
And do you work in academia as well?
I am employee experience and culture.
Okay. Great. Cool. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put our slides up so we can just see where they are here. There. There we go. And of course, it's at the very end. We don't want the very end. We want the very beginning. Yeah, so again, if those of you who joined us late, I was sort of inspired by a conversation with one of our graduates from last year, wrestling with how to enroll a long-standing client to try some new things. And so this one of the scenarios that this person shared with me gave me sort of food for thought about how we might talk about today. So for those of you who are new, this is where I start every one of these sessions, just as a reminder from Robin. And in relationship to today's sort of theme, I was thinking about this in terms of there's sort of the subtle, or maybe not so subtle, arrogance sometimes of those of us who know a lot about this stuff, you know, because it's the work that we do. And we think, oh, they're going to love this idea just like I do, or they're going to think this concept or this model is as amazing as I do. And in reality, I just have come to really appreciate in recent times, as I navigate sort of the mystery of my own sort of health challenge, about the mystery of all of this. And I've started to come to the things that I do, whether it's coaching or conversations with people, as if I know nothing. And in part, it's not because I don't know anything. It's because when you're meeting somebody, especially the first time, there's obviously many things going on for them and with them and in them that they may never share with us, but are really important to them. And so I've just come to this place and sort of thinking about Robin's quote here about kindness is in part just a way to remain open to what's happening and to not assume anything. And so it's a lot of what we do in working in the ID way is part of why we forego extensive curriculums and guides and agendas, is because it just assumes that we know what you should have. And even if what you have is amazing, they may or may not find that useful to them. So the sort of kindness comes from a willingness to just be with them, to help them discover what it is they actually need from us. And so just as a way to kind of introduce the program for this coming year that starts next week, it's a blending of our two other programs, the Narrative Release program and our original ID program, Integrative Development. The Narrative Release really allows you to do the inner work, to allow you to have the courage to work like this and to be aware of that sort of in yourself. And then the ID is, what do you do when you have those moments for people, when you have an opportunity to help them unlock a piece of learning or development for them? How do you actually do that? And so every single module will have that sort of inner and outer blend so that you can spend the energy where you most need to. It's called an experience because it's in some ways not like a traditional program. A lot of the content will be sort of decentered and put offline for you to watch or read at your own leisure. And we're going to use more of our face time together to actually talk to each other, which is what most of us want anyways. And then there'll be a chance for you in a forum we have just for this class, for you to ask questions, share ideas, share experiences as a way to kind of deepen your connection to each other. But rather than kind of doing yoga over here and some kind of neurosciencing over here where everything is kind of separate and jumbled, we're going to bring all that into one space. So I think it's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to starting this for next week. So I want to I want to ask again, I will come back around at the end and talk more about the specifics of the program. But is there anything that's important to you that you want to make sure that you get out of today that I can know about before we get going on our practice for today? All good? All right, excellent. Okay, so this is our scenario. You're running a workshop and I'm sure you've never heard this from any of your participants, but just in case. And they, at some point grumble either loudly or not so loudly that, well, that won't work here. And so we're going to imagine that this particular scenario, this person is displacing their anxiety about what you're asking them to do. So it's not like it won't work there. It's just, they believe I can't do that, or I don't want to do that, or I don't like that, or I'm probably not good enough for that, or that's other people's jobs, or all kinds of other reasons people come up with. And so I want to just give you, as we are doing all this work, I want to give you sort of the before and after picture. So the before picture is what we what we often get caught doing when we feel defensive when people are doing this. And I want to give you what an ID response might look like. So you have that. This is the usual way we handle these kind of moments if we're not careful. When somebody sort of shouts out or sort of mutters under their breath, well, that will never work here. So I wanted to sort of think about two ways we could address that. So this is what we tend to focus on. Oh, I must not have explained it very well, or I must not have been clear, or I must not have been compelling or inspiring enough, or maybe there wasn't enough details. And so we over effort trying to like, okay, I've got to go back down the stairs and run up them again faster, or backwards, or sideways, or with green pants on instead of blue pants. And then we're already projecting out past this to, well, if I'm just do this better next time, then they'll get on board, and then we can just kind of get on with the program. But the reality is, this is what they focus on. They're not interested in any of that. All they know is there's some giant unknown thing that you think that they think you want them to do or think about or imagine. And they're thinking of all the reasons why that's never going to work for them, or they don't want to be bothered with that working for them, or whatever. And so we're focusing on totally different things. And so the reality is that all of our explaining gets very frustrating for us because it doesn't change them for the most part. Every now and then it does, but often it doesn't. And they get frustrated because you're not helping them deal with their unknown, which they're trying to avoid, or in this case, to not have to deal with their own anxiety. And we'll sort of unpack a bit more about that later. So one of the things that we do in all of the work, but particularly in ID, is we stay present to what is actually presented to us. So we're going to use this literal phrase, that won't work here. And I want to use one of our sort of self-development or narrative release tools to kind of help us figure out how we could respond to this person differently. So we're going to sort of do a little riff on our narrative diamond and look at it this way. So first, before we start hyperventilating and over-explaining, we might just pause. And we might just take what they said at complete face value. And we might ask them to unpack the word that. So when you say that won't work here, can you tell me some more about what you mean by that? And what we're doing in this is we're enrolling the person to explain to them, sometimes to themselves, but certainly to us, what their comment is actually about. And it's not like we're going to improve what they said or necessarily change what we said, but we're going to help us all understand what they actually meant. And so we're just going to explore the word that. That's all we're going to do. And we're going to get them to pause as well. I can see this is concerning to you, so let's unpack that a bit. Tell me some more about what you mean about the word that. And then we might get them, as they start to do that, we might get them to kind of relax into, so you said it won't. So what gives you the impression that this won't work here? And what would that look like? Or what would it look like if it did work here? And what is that won't a bit about? And so without criticizing or trying to change their mind, we're just helping them be clearer to themselves and to us what they actually meant. And then you're going to start getting things like, well, it's not really it won't, but it's like, I don't have time for that, or that seems like really hard, or that's so different than how we do things, or, well, great, now we have more information than we had before about what's actually happening for them. The premise for this in the ID side of this is that we spend enormous amounts of time normally trying to over-prepare and trying to cover every contingency and imagine that we know what people actually need. I have no idea what this person needs yet. I still don't, even after doing these first two pieces. but I'm getting some new clues about what this is actually really all about. So I want to save my knowledge and my experience and my wisdom to only spend it in places where it's welcome, which means the person is ready and willing to hear me, and we actually know what the conversation needs to be about. And so then if we move over to our third bit, after we've gotten enough sense of this, we have work. So if we just open up, so if we just relaxed a bit and got a better sense of kind of how they're constructing this. So what do you mean it won't work? So like, tell me some more about that. And what you're slowly doing is you're helping them to get a better picture of their whole story. You're making it safe for them because you've not judged them or shamed them or put them down. And you're trying to help them tell you what's really important to them. So I think about that, for example, just as a concrete example of this, I did a large series of leadership programs for the city of Portland, where I lived before and live now. And this was like massively unionized, massively entrenched culture. And we were doing a group, I think they were like maintenance or something. So even like pretty hardcore, I dare you to try to change me kind of audience. And this one guy had his arms crossed the whole time, but he seemed like kind of a nice guy. So I did something exactly like this with him. And we were showing kind of a traditional change bell curve. And there was the usual kind of derogatory comment about the laggards, the ones that don't want to participate. And I asked him, I said, well, how would you do this? Well, I said, well, I'm not a laggard. I've been working for the city for, I don't know, 37 years, and I'm really proud of my job. Great. So what should we call you instead? He said, it was like, we're the guardians. Really? So and what does a guardian do? It's like going back to the work question. What does a guardian do? Well, there's some great things about this city that we don't get credit for. And he went on this, and he said, great. So are there any other people in the room that self-identify as a guardian? There's like 3 of them raise their hands. Great. So I'd like you to, and so I broke people into groups by kind of where they position themselves on the curve. And so we got them each to write, what do you want us to most know about you? And if you were in charge, what would you want to pay attention to? And these guys created this extraordinary list of things that we often don't give people in his position in this any credit for. And so it completely changed the nature of the conversation. So being open to what work meant to him in that context, we changed the entire workshop. And then if the last go around in this context is act. So we're here now at this moment in time, X number of minutes after we started this conversation. So we can ask the person, so what do you see now? Is this still true for you? Do you believe this won't work here? And the vast majority of the time, most people have enough new awareness to kind of rephrase their comment. And I've told some of you who've been in the previous class of the greatest example of this for me ever was in the first time I ever did an ID project from start to finish over 2 years. And we had our opening sort of orientation session. We had like, I don't know, 75, 80 people in the room. And about halfway through the presentation, it was only like 90 minutes. I asked any questions, any thoughts, and this woman stands up and she's kind of like, I don't know if you remember the movie, I think it was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a big burly nursing kind of person. And she said this exact phrase, "This will never work here." So I said, really? So I did a sort of a turbo version of this. And to get a little bit more understanding. And then I said to her, would you be willing, because she was going to storm out of the room. And I said to her, would you be willing to stay to the end of the session? And she said, well, fine. Because she's a bit put herself out there, and it's going to be a bit embarrassing if she threw a tantrum and left. So she said, fine. But it was basically, she sat down, crossed her arms and looked down, and basically, again, I dare you to try to change me. And I said to her, I have no interest in changing you. If this does not work for you, then don't participate. It's fine. Anyways, so at the end of our session, she stood up, and you could have heard a pin drop because everybody's just waiting for the round 2 of the tirade about what an idiot I was or how this was never going to work. And she had a tear in her eye, and she said, I need to apologize to you. She said, I realized after listening to the rest of this that I was afraid that I couldn't do this. And I'm in charge of my department. And I didn't want to admit that I didn't know how to do this. And so I just made it about you. But she said this, it said, if we could do this, and if I could learn how to do this, that would be amazing. And she went on to become our fiercest advocate in the entire organization. And so the piece for me in this is that we don't know what's going on for people. We don't really know what they need. And oftentimes they don't either. And so the reason we work this way is to have the courage to go toe to toe to people that want to challenge us or dismiss us or don't understand this. Or like in my student's graduate's case, she couldn't get her favorite client to understand why she wanted to work differently now. So anyways, I'm going to stop there. I think, yes. Okay, let's stop there. And just see if you have any thoughts or reflections for yourself. And then I'm going to give you a chance to practice this. Open up all the screens so I can see everybody. There we go. Oh.
May I say
You may,
something?
Joe.
I was thinking all the things, but one of the things that struck me with the last thing is that, just a reminder that just as we don't know the people who come to us, that we are also one of those people and we don't always know what we need, and the allowance of not, teasing this out of somebody, but allowing ourselves to be changed in the process as well, sort of that kind of mutual alchemical thing, which I think about that a lot with, pedagogy and the work I do in faculty development. And I think sometimes there's a resistance on our part, too. And so anyway, just interested in that further piece of mutual like reciprocity and the ability to be open to what might emerge.
Yeah. And you would appreciate that Paulo Freire is deeply embedded in all of this.
I am a Freirean, so I do appreciate that. Thank you.
David?
Yes, Hollis.
Just riffing off what Jill said, I think so many times we're rushing through life. This whole pattern makes us just stop and think about it. But also, like with that lady you mentioned, the Nurse Cratchit type.
Yeah.
It's kind of like she was ready to walk out, but you move toward her and you said, would you be willing to stay here through the whole thing? And that was an invitation, and she could have just said no and left.
Yes.
But actually stayed, and at the end of it had a tear in her eye and said, I need to apologize. Well, that was so wonderful just thinking about that, because you moved toward her, but you slowed things down.
Yeah.
And you invited her in, and she said, yes, I'll stay, arms folded and all. But she stayed, and everybody, including her and everybody she works with and leads, is the better for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm stunned by that. This whole notion of, you call it, your group is called the Moment Institute. I thought, boy, that was this wonderful moment. Like,
Yeah.
we could have predicted or scripted that.
No.
Wow, what a wonderful outcome that was.
Well, and one of the principles that you'll learn in the program that we focus a lot on, and it's really become more aware and present for me in the last couple of years, as people like Stephanie and Carol would know, and Kathleen. We really only should be doing what the client's actually ready for in that moment in time. So to your point, Hollis, I had a moment of lucidity, and I thought, I need to make my request of her big enough to matter, but small enough that she'll feel comfortable saying yes.
Yeah.
So if a guy had said, hey, let's have a dialogue about that right now, that's too much.
Too confrontational. Yeah.
Yeah, too confrontational. If I make it too small, like I defer to her, or I put myself down to kind of equal things out, then that doesn't help either. It's this gentle invitation, because I could see, I've spent a career reading faces. And I could see in her face that there was a bit of bravado in what she was saying, that she didn't totally believe all of this. So I said, there is an opening here. but
Mm.
probably not a very big one. And she's got 80 sets of eyes watching her, including her boss. And so there's a lot at stake. There's a lot at stake for me because, you know, one of the ways I work is this first workshop is that we do with our clients is essentially free.
Mhm.
And because if you don't like this, then that's fine. But so that moment in many ways crystallized a 2-year commitment from the executive director. She watched that moment and realized how much respect I had for this woman.
Mm.
I didn't know her, but
Yeah.
just intrinsically, and how I could help in something that probably took less than 3 or 4 minutes
Yeah.
to kind of create this thing, because and it's always this discernment. What is this person ready for right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So-
the woman was, you mentioned early on when you described her, it's like, she was probably thinking, her resistance came from, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But you then said, you know, your invitation.
Yeah.
Big enough so it mattered, but small enough she could say, I can do that. I can
Yeah.
stay here, fold my arms,
Yeah.
but I can stay put and listen to the rest of it.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Yes. Yeah. And thanks for reflecting that. Anybody else? Do you have words that go with your smile, Stephanie?
Just thinking of a few times where those exact moments happened and just how magical it is when you just sit back and as Jill said, just be willing to trust yourself and be malleable to fit in the situation.
Yeah.
Good moments.
Yeah. And this is where the narrative release after this really matters, because earlier in my career, when I wasn't as mature and as grounded in myself, I would have gotten a bit defensive and I would have thought, oh, I better perform better, or I better answer better, or I'm going to do more. And, you know, sometimes that works anyways, but often not. And so the ability to, as you were saying, Jill, to not know, even myself, like, I don't know how this is going to go either, right? It's in attachment terms, it's a moment of meeting. We're both going to emerge from this differently than it started, one way or another, up or down. We're not going to leave this the way we came in. So how can we rise together to create a more powerful moment? Yeah.
Mhm.
And Justine, glad we can see you now. Yeah.
I do like the piece about breaking down each word. I often find myself finding out what's behind the that, but the each word in the sentence was very helpful.
Mm,
And the way you're able to get her to get to her primary emotion was inspiring as well.
yeah. Yeah, I just find smaller pieces is often better, and using things that have already been said or shown rather than trying to go right after it directly is way more effective for the vast majority of people, especially in public. Yeah. Okay, so now that you're all experts on this. So one of the things that you'll learn a lot in the program is we do a lot of experimentation. The analogy that we'll use in the class is that we want to turn you all into 5-year-old skiers. We don't want you to approach ID as a 50-year-old skier who's afraid of falling down and looking dumb and hurting themselves. So we're going to create lots of safe places for you to play. And so, so that you can try things before you even quite know what they are or how to do them. Just like when you were children. And we just find that that's a much funner and more natural way to learn. So what we're going to do, and if you might want to just take a snapshot of this, because Zoom still hasn't figured out how to make slides available in breakout rooms, or maybe I haven't, maybe I'm the dumb one, but and this will give you just the instructions. So we're going to do something quite similar. So we're going to ask you to kind of, I'll break you into some small groups and put you in groups of 2. Do you want, yeah, do 2. And then one of you can just share a challenge that either you're facing in your own practice or maybe with a client or somebody where you work. And then I just kind of, if you're the other person, just help them distill the challenge down to a few words. It doesn't have to be 4. I just mapped it here to 4, but oftentimes it's, it's often, there's a noun, there's a story about the verb here, what's going on. And then there's often a noun at the end. That's just a sample. You don't, it's not, I know we have an English professor. I have to be really careful on this call now. This is not an assignment. You don't get a grade because you did it perfectly. And these are just suggestions about how you might structure this, but it's a way to just invite the other person to really sit with, like, what is really true about this challenge? What is really important about the challenge? So this in itself is an ID skill, helping people get to the crux of their issue. And so I want you to just, and this could take half your time, which would be fine, because that in itself is often quite healing. And then I want you just to kind of imagine, and you can do this spatially in whatever way works for you, but just kind of get some different perspectives. Like, how could you see this challenge as you pause, relax, and open into it, right? So you might, put an object out in the center of the room that signifies your challenge. And then a pause, like, what is that? And, what is the verb that I don't like that, or that's not working, or whatever it is. And so these are just suggestions. Again, there's not, because I don't want you to, like, I have to do it David's way or have to do it a certain way. I want you to, the main thing is I want you to focus on one word at a time, allow yourself to pause, relax, and open, and then act and see what emerges from there. And so some of you might use space if that's organizing better for you. Some of you might focus more on the words. But I want you just to kind of help the person unpack their challenge one word at a time, noticing themselves pausing and relaxing and opening as they do. Okay? Is that enough of an instruction? Right. And if not, too bad, because that's all you're going to get. But so the wonderful part of this is there's, however you do this will be perfect. Find your way to do this in a way that works for you. You're not trying to, again, demonstrate you've mastered something you just learned 5 minutes ago. You're trying to use this as a resource to say, how could I look at my challenge differently than I'm looking at it right now? Okay? Is there anything else I can offer that would be helpful to you? Right. So we'll go ahead and create some breakout rooms.
Maybe just question on how long. Will we
Yes,
be in the breakout
excellent.
room?
Well, let me see. So what time is it now? It's about, so we can give you 40 minutes. So you have about 20 minutes per person. Is that too little, Jill, or do you want more?
No, I'm just thinking I should go make a second cup of coffee.
We find that once people get started, they like going, and I don't want to make it too, I want people to have enough time. So we'll give you 20 minutes. Okay. Okay, it was 40 minutes, so it's 20 minutes per person. We almost did that wrong. Okay, you ready? Okay. There we go. Enjoy. All right. So how were your adventures?
They were quite wonderful, David. Thank you for inviting us into that.
And what did you discover, Hollis?
Oh dear. I'm quite neurotic.
You're what?
I'm quite neurotic.
Okay, well, it's good to know.
I just think if I was listening to myself, I was paired with Kathleen. If I was listening to myself, I mean, I'd be thinking, I'd have all kinds of advice and counsel, but when this whole exercise, it's not about me and what I know. It's one of my mentors had a great phrase, and it kind of encapsulated what you're mentioning. He says, we're on tap, not on top. So we're available, but not as the expert, but as a companion to process this. So I just realized that, there's just being listening and there's being with people. Kathleen was such a great listener, and she asked me just a couple questions, and just one of them just turned the tables on me. So very helpful. I'll stop. Everybody else want to chance to chat. Thanks, David.
Thanks, you're welcome. Yeah, and we get to keep all of our expertise. We just get to use it more intelligently.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hmm. Who'd like to go next? Hmm.
Stephanie and I spoke, and it was
Okay.
very lovely. We had beautiful conversation. And we really got to in the question, what do you want? And we really just explored that. And it was a wonderful, beautiful conversation.
Hmm. Thank you. Carol.
I knew you were going to ask me, David. Uh, from my perspective, it was a very, very rich experience of walking through the process with Jill. A tremendous amount of just the how I say the wealth and the knowledge of working, working with Jill. And the other part is was also watching her. Like it just not only was it just the words, but it just watching all of her energy and her facial expressions and her body as we focused on the 4 areas and moved through the process. I mean,
Hmm.
I will, I would invite Jill to comment on her experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, I have words written down here that I'm going to look at afterwards. But I will say this in the whole process, I mean, Jill is so full of knowledge and love of her work and sharing. And she brought a great big smile and laughter, and I will remember this as going forward because she referenced a movie. But her one statement,
Hmm.
as a, I think it was the father said to the daughter, is, "You can't ride 2 horses with 1 ass." I love that. That puts so many things in context. So I'll turn it over.
Something a good motto in life.
Yeah, let Jill share, because yes, that is such a profound metaphor.
Hmm.
Thanks, Carol. That was sweet. Although, gosh, you're gonna put me on record as quoting the rom-com rather than E.E. Cummings. That sort of degrades me a little. But no, it was super, super lovely. And yeah, sort of unexpected, and I think Carol's very lovely in that, one of the things I'll say, even though I know this is being recorded and this is a little embarrassing, but I've recently been thinking a lot about the concept of Amrit, which is sort of an idea. Amrit is sort of a nectar or something that sort of lights you up. And I've been sort of trying to think about in this sort of divide between my head and my soul, the thing that sort of lights you up from inside. And to me, it's that when I feel that I'm connected, my eyes are radiating. And the next day after I thought this, I came across this term Amrit, which is that it said that when someone is said to have awakened this within them, their eyes are said to be shimmering. And I just thought that was so lovely because that's how I connected. And there was a point at which in Carol's work with me that I feel like my eyes began to shimmer. And she saw that and she commented on it. And that, yeah, it was super lovely. And so thank you for that. And also it was really lovely to sort of, we didn't have enough time, I was making fun of how long, but we didn't have enough time to even get through all of Carol's discussion, and we're gonna stay connected and continue the conversation. But yeah, it's just really, it was just lovely to sort of hear the work she's doing and how she's thinking of it. So thank you for that space. And thank you, Carol.
Anyone else? All right. All right, I'm going back to sharing the screen here. Yeah, so I just put up another example of what this might look like. And I just want to, when we're running things on an agenda, we're always anxious about time. Did we guess the amount of time? Did we allow the right amount of time? Is there going to be enough time? And what I find in working this way, there's always enough time because you're doing exactly the work you need to be doing. And so part of that though is it's a trust in that, and it's a willingness to allow ourselves to be so immersed in what we're doing that time feels like it slows down. It doesn't really, but it feels that way. It's more spacious. And so I kind of just summarized another sort of use of this same phrase, just to kind of help us, kind of get the sense of this. So when you invite somebody to pause, when they think about that, oh, it's my anxiety. Maybe I won't fit in here now. And we got this a lot in big change projects we used to do. It wasn't that they were against the change. They were just worried they wouldn't have a place in it. And there was about fitting in was more of the anxiety of that. It wasn't that itself. As I relaxed around that, that anxiety a bit, they started to realize that won't really was a stand-in. It was a character for, this is all unknown to me, and I get really afraid of the unknown. I don't like being confronted by that. But as I relax, I can start to just sit with my fear. And then as I sit with my fear, like what opens up if I'm not clinging to my fear? Oh, I realize that when I feel like this other times, I just put my head down and do my job. But when I can just be with the fear as opposed to withdrawing and putting my head down, I start to realize, hey, I'm not that happy in this job. Then as I open up to my unhappiness, my act is I'm willing, rather than do something or put my head down again or fight it or whatever, I'm just willing to use my energy now to do something more useful for me for this person, which was to face their unhappiness. So again, we often run around in those first three phases trying to make people feel better or, be engaged or get something, and we don't ever really get to the real issue, but they actually really what they could value. So I find this process really helps then. So now he's at the point where, oh, I can actually face my unhappiness. That's okay. And then I can realize that my decision really is, do I want to stay here and kind of move through this change process, or should I not? Should I just go? But now we have something meaningful to talk about. So what I've just found over time, I think when I was younger in my career, all these grand ambitions about change and how we could create new things and create big things and make amazing things happen. And, if I had $1 for every time I heard the word transformation in people's advertising, I'd be a millionaire. But, and I'm just now realizing that most of the changes that are significant to us, they might involve an action that's immediate, but a lot of them comes through lots of small steps, many of which we don't plan, many of which we don't anticipate. They just happen. And so we're going to teach you in the program and help you discover how do you kind of, almost like a potter would work with on a clay on a wheel. How do we help you make the moment more malleable so you can actually figure out which of these sort of four pieces would be helpful to this person to kind of move them through this? And what is that clay actually trying to become? And so you could have, 20 people in a workshop, all ostensibly there for the same reason, but they're each destined to become something different out of the same clay. So for me, this is just much more free and it's intense at first, but that's where the narrative release work comes in to help us be with that. But in the end, it actually becomes, I find, much simpler. So again, this is just a way for those who like reading as opposed to listening. The narrative release part of this program deepens your capacity to be with the unknown. And the ID part of the program helps you deepen your capacity to step into those moments. And then this is ongoing sort of dance in that space. So I just want to, we have just a few more minutes. There's just a couple more slides sort of talking about the details of the program, if you'd like that. But just want to see what else would be valuable for you in our last 5 minutes or so for today.
David,
Yes.
um, can, I've not been to narrative release, so can I just go right into the IDWay experience, or is narrative release a prerequisite?
No, thanks for a good question, Hollis. So in the past, we had two separate programs, narrative release and ID.
Mhm.
And for a number of reasons, when I came back from my holiday at Christmas, I decided that I wasn't. I think I'm very thankful. Little did I know how sick I would become. So I had this foretelling of something was coming. So I needed to make some changes. And I also thought, these programs are just two sides of the same coin. And while I really, really enjoyed the pilot we had of our narrative release program, I just thought we need to kind of move away from a typical program structure and create it more as an experience.
Mm.
And so each of the program we have, and so the two, the ID and our programs were actually along a pretty similar structure in terms of the design. They were just really focused on a very different half of the equation. But when I started to blend them, I realized that it actually wouldn't be that difficult and actually more desirable to actually bring them together. And so you'll get pretty much everything you would have gotten in either of the independent programs now together. But it's like, what I kept hearing from the narrative release graduates, oh, this is amazing for me, but what do I do with this? Like, how do I, like, what is this for me in terms of my work? And from the ID students, and, and Stephanie shared this story several times with projects, and with the ID graduates is like, wow, but how do I have the courage to actually work like this? How do I help my clients have the courage to work like this? Well, that's what you need NR for. And so by bringing them together, and I was sharing this with somebody this morning who's signed up for the program today, that each of you is going to chart your own course with this. You're going to on your own, but also in a small work group. And where you end up in this will be very unique to you. So a lot of what happens in this program is you will be invited to compost a lot of what you once thought was important in your work. You'll be invited to curate what's left. So you can basically just channel the best of yourself in any moment in time. It's the best thing I've ever done for myself as a parent, for sure. And so it's really a way for you to do your own inner work to be what's next for you, all the while thinking about learning practical things you can do to help make that actualized, and then start to learn how to do that with others, regardless of how you spend your work life. We have facilitators on this call. We have coaches and consultants on the call. We have academics on the call. I'm not sure what Justine does. I forget, sorry. But what do you do, Justine? You're on mute, sorry.
I had double mute going. I primarily am a choreographer, but I'm building a program for culture and employee experience.
Okay, excellent. Oh, what a great combination. I'm visualizing this. Yeah. So it just allows you to for you, like sort of what we just did today, we'll do a fair bit of things like that at the start of the program, so you can begin to discern why are you here. So you're not there to consume the material. That's just a benefit. You're here to transform yourself in whatever way you decide or discover is important to you. And then the beauty is you'll find people along the way that are along similar journeys that you can partner with and talk to. All right, Kathleen's jumped off for another call, but anything else before we close for today?
David, one more question. If we have further questions, can we talk to you, make an appointment to talk to you another time?
Yes, you can. Yeah, so you can I'm away this week, so my calendar is a bit weird, but if you can just either send a note to MI Connect, or there's a Calendly link, I think, for my part of the website. You can put that in. I've got to update it when I get home on Monday, but you just email me directly at david@themomentinstitute.com.
And this ID will start what time, what day next week?
I
Was
think
it
it's on
Wednesday?
the 4th. What's that? It's Wednesday, I think.
Wednesday, okay, great. Okay, thank
I
you.
think so. Go away. Was it Tuesday? Oh, it's Tuesday. Yeah. Yeah, and then, yeah. All right.
I actually, I mean, maybe for another time, because I don't know anything about narrative release or integrative development, and I also don't know anything about the program, and I actually am curious to learn more sort of the specifics. And so maybe, I mean, it seems like I'm in a different space of that than everybody else here. So maybe for another time, or if there's a place to direct me to
Yeah.
find out
so-
more about what this is.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah, so again, you're welcome to just send me an email or reply to my LinkedIn message, and we'll set up a time. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you for coming to join us today, and hopefully we'll see some of you in the program. And it's always lovely to have these kind of conversations. And I'm going to go walk by the sea now and try to get some fresh air. See if it'll help my lungs.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, David. Thanks, everybody.
You're welcome. Be well, folks.